People who cut off toxic family. What was the final straw? I always thought family was supposed to be your safe harbor. The people who'd have your back no matter what. Growing up, I clung to that idea, even when it started to feel like a lie. My name's Mia. I'm 24, and for years I tried to keep my family together. My mom, my older sister Lauren, and me, despite the cracks that kept widening. Mom was the queen of guilt trips, and Lauren, well, she was a master at twisting every situation to make herself the victim. I spent my life tiptoeing around their drama, hoping one day they'd see me as more than a fixer, a bank, or a punching bag. But last spring, something snapped, and I realized I couldn't keep carrying their weight. It wasn't one big moment that pushed me to cut them off. It was a slow burn, capped by a betrayal that broke my heart in a way I never saw coming. Mom and Lauren were a team, always had been. Mom was the emotional one, quick to cry or lecture about family loyalty whenever I dared to put myself first. Lauren, 28, was sharper, with a tongue that could cut glass and a knack for turning every argument back on you. Growing up, I was the peacekeeper, smoothing over their fights, covering Lauren's rent when she forgot to pay, or listening to Mom's hour-long rants about how hard her life was. Dad left when I was 5, and Mom never let me forget it was up to us to stick together. "Family's all we've got, Mia," she'd say, her voice heavy with expectation. I bought it, hook, line, and sinker, even when it meant putting my own dreams on hold. I'd always wanted to be an artist, not the starving kind, but someone who could make a living with a sketch pad and a vision. In high school, I spent hours in the art room, filling notebooks with drawings, landscapes, portraits, anything that felt alive. My favorite was a sketchbook Grandma gave me before she passed when I was 12. It was leather-bound, with thick, creamy pages, and she'd written inside the cover, "For Mia's dreams." I carried it everywhere, filling it with my best work, a piece of her I could still hold on to. Mom and Lauren thought it was a hobby, not a future. "Art doesn't pay bills," Mom would say, while Lauren rolled her eyes and called it cute, but I kept at it, working part-time at a coffee shop to save for art school, dreaming of a life where I could create without their voices in my head. By the time I was 24, I was close to my goal. I'd saved enough for a deposit on a small apartment and was applying to a community college with a killer art program. Things were tight though. Lauren was between jobs, again, and Mom's hours at the grocery store had been cut. I was still helping them out, dipping into my savings to cover their phone bills or buy groceries when Mom's fridge was empty. It wasn't just money, it was time, energy, everything. Lauren would call at 2 a.m., crying about some guy who ghosted her, and I'd stay up talking her down. Mom would guilt me into spending weekends cleaning her house because family helps family. I was exhausted, but I told myself it was temporary. They'd get back on their feet and I'd finally have room to breathe. The trouble started in March, when Lauren showed up at my coffee shop job during a rush. I was juggling orders, the espresso machine hissing like a dragon, when she slid into a booth, looking polished in a new leather jacket I knew she couldn't afford. "Mia, we need to talk," she said, her voice all business. I wiped my hands on my apron, already dreading it. "Can it wait? I'm slammed," she sighed, like I was the one inconveniencing her. "It's important. Mom's behind on rent. She needs help like yesterday." My stomach sank. Mom hadn't mentioned anything, but that wasn't new. She'd rather let things spiral than admit she was struggling. "How much?" I asked, bracing myself. Lauren leaned back, sipping a latte she hadn't paid for. $2,000, maybe 3. I nearly choked. "3,000? Lauren, I don't have that kind of cash lying around." She raised an eyebrow like I was lying. "You've got your art school fund, don't you? Mom's gonna lose her place if you don't step up." I stared at her, my hands shaking. That fund was my lifeline. Years of scrimping and saying no to nights out or new clothes. But the thought of Mom getting evicted twisted my gut. "I'll see what I can do," I muttered, turning back to the counter. Lauren smiled, all sweetness now. "You're the best, Mia. We'll pay you back." I didn't believe her, but I nodded, already doing the math in my head. If I skipped the apartment deposit, I could cover half of Mom's rent, maybe more. Art school would have to wait. Again, that night, I called Mom to get the full story. She picked up on the third ring, her voice wobbly. "Oh, Mia, it's just a mess," she said, launching into a monologue about her landlord, her boss, her bad luck. When I asked why she didn't tell me sooner, she sighed. "I didn't want to burden you, honey. Lauren said you'd figure it out." That stung. Lauren had thrown me under the bus, making it sound like I was the one who'd solve everything. I took a deep breath. "Mom, I can help with 1,000, but that's it. You've got to talk to your landlord, work out a plan." There was a long pause, then a sniffle. "1,000? Mia, that's not enough. What kind of daughter lets her mother lose her home?" My heart clenched, but I held firm. "It's all I can do." "I'm trying, Mom." She hung up without saying goodbye. I sent the money the next day, my savings account looking sicker than ever. Lauren texted a quick, "Thanks, sis," with a heart emoji, like it was no big deal. I wanted to scream, but I buried it, focusing on my art to keep from spiraling. That sketchbook from Grandma was my anchor, its pages filled with sketches of places I wanted to go, people I loved, dreams I still held on to. I'd started a new drawing, a portrait of Grandma from an old photo, her smile soft and knowing. Working on it felt like talking to her, like she was reminding me I was more than Mom and Lauren's safety net. A week later, things got worse. I was at Mom's house, dropping off some groceries I'd bought with my tips, when I noticed something off. The living room was cluttered, as usual, but there was a new vibe. Boxes of stuff, some labeled sell, others keep. I spotted a stack of my old books and a lamp I'd given Mom for Christmas. "What's all this?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Mom was in the kitchen, stirring tea, her face pinched. "Just decluttering," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Lauren's helping me sell some things online. We need the cash." I frowned. "My books? The lamp? Mom, I gave you that." She shrugged, her voice sharp. "We can't be sentimental, Mia. You want me to keep your junk when I'm drowning?" I bit my lip, hurt but not surprised. Mom had always been quick to dismiss what mattered to me if it didn't serve her. I was about to leave when I saw it, a glimpse of leather in one of the cell boxes. My heart stopped. I reached in, my hands trembling, and pulled out Grandma's sketchbook. The one with her handwriting, my dreams, years of my life. "Mom," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "this This is mine. She glanced over, then looked away. Lauren must have grabbed it by mistake. It's just an old notebook, Mia. Don't make a fuss. A mistake? Lauren knew what that sketchbook meant to me. She'd seen me carry it, sketch in it, guard it like a treasure. This wasn't an accident. I clutched the sketchbook to my chest, my pulse racing. Where's Lauren? I asked, my voice shaking. Mom sighed like I was being dramatic. She's at her place, listing stuff online. Talk to her if you're so upset. I didn't wait. I drove straight to Lauren's apartment, the sketchbook in my passenger seat, my mind a storm of anger and betrayal. Lauren answered the door in sweatpants, her phone in hand, looking annoyed. What's your deal? She said before I could even speak. I held up the sketchbook, my hands trembling. This was in Mom's cell pile. You took it. Why? Lauren rolled her eyes, leaning against the doorframe. Oh, come on, Mia. It's a ratty old book. I thought you'd moved on from your doodling phase. We need money, not clutter. Doodling phase? My art was my soul, and she knew it. You had no right, I said, my voice rising. This was Grandma's. It's mine. You knew what it means to me. She crossed her arms, smirking. You're so selfish. You know that? Mom's about to lose everything and you're crying over a notebook. Grow up, Mia. I stared at her, my chest tight with rage and hurt. This wasn't just about the sketchbook. It was years of her taking, dismissing, using me. You don't get to decide what matters to me, I said, my voice low. Not anymore. I turned and left, the sketchbook safe in my hands, but something inside me was shifting. I drove home, my apartment feeling smaller than ever, and sat on my couch, flipping through the sketchbook's pages. Grandma's handwriting stared back at me, for Mia's dreams. I'd been so focused on Mom and Lauren, on keeping them afloat, that I'd let my dreams shrink. Lauren's betrayal, taking something so personal, dismissing it as junk, was a wake-up call. But it wasn't the final straw, not yet. That was coming, and when it did, it would change everything. I didn't talk to Lauren or Mom for days after that. I needed space, time to think. My phone buzzed with texts. Lauren's half apologies. Didn't mean to upset you, geez. Mom's guilt trips. You're being so distant, Mia. What's wrong with you? I ignored them, focusing on work and my art school application. But the hurt lingered, a weight I couldn't shake. I kept asking myself, how much more could I take? How many times could they cross a line before I drew one of my own? I didn't have answers, but I knew I was close to finding them, whether I was ready or not. After finding Grandma's sketchbook in Mom's cell pile, I felt like I was walking on a tightrope. Lauren's betrayal, taking something so personal and dismissing it as worthless, had shaken me. But it wasn't just about the sketchbook. It was years of her and Mom leaning on me, draining me, acting like my needs were an afterthought. I'm Mia, 24, and I'd spent my life playing the good daughter, the reliable sister, always putting their crises above my dreams. I wanted to believe I could keep them in my life without losing myself. But the weeks that followed pushed me closer to a line I wasn't sure I was ready to cross. The drama kept coming, and every step felt like it was leading me toward a breaking point. I tried to create some distance after the sketchbook incident. I stopped answering Lauren's texts right away, letting her shry. Didn't know it was a big deal messages pile up. Mom's calls went to voicemail, her voice dripping with guilt. Mia, you're acting so cold. What did I do? I needed space to focus on my art school application, to protect the small piece of myself I'd carved out. My apartment became my sanctuary, a cramped studio with paint-splattered floors and a corner dedicated to my art. Grandma's sketchbook sat on my desk, a reminder of why I was fighting for this. I'd started a new drawing, a cityscape at dusk, all purples and golds, the kind of place I imagined escaping to. Every stroke felt like a rebellion against Mom and Lauren's expectations. But family has a way of pulling you back in. A week after the incident, I was at the coffee shop, wiping down tables during a slow shift when Mom showed up unannounced. She looked frazzled, her hair in a messy bun, clutching a purse that was falling apart at the seams. Mia, we need to talk, she said, sliding into a booth without asking. I sighed, already bracing myself. I'm working, Mom. Can it wait? She shook her head, her eyes welling up. No, it can't. Lauren's in trouble, and I don't know what to do. My stomach twisted. Lauren was always in trouble. Bad boyfriends were maxed out credit cards, jobs she quit after a month. What kind of trouble? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Mom launched into a story about Lauren borrowing money from some shady lender to start a business, selling clothes online. The business was a flop, and now the guy was hounding her for repayment, threatening to show up at Mom's house if she didn't pay up. She's scared, Mia, Mom said, her voice breaking. We need to help her. I stared at her, my rag frozen on the table. How much? Mom hesitated, then mumbled, 5,000. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made my coworker glance over. 5,000? Mom, I just gave you $1,000 for rent. I don't have that kind of money. Her face hardened, that familiar guilt trip look. You've got your savings, don't you? Lauren said you're sitting on a fortune for that art thing. Family comes first, Mia. I felt like I'd been slapped. Lauren had told her about my art school fund, the one I'd bled for, and now they were using it against me. That's my future, I said, my voice shaking. I'm not giving it up because Lauren made another mess. Mom's eyes narrowed. You're so selfish sometimes. Your sister could be in danger, and you're worried about your little drawings? Little drawings. The words cut deeper than I expected, slicing through years of her dismissing my passion. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I'll think about it, I lied, just to get her to leave. She nodded, satisfied, and left without ordering anything, like my workplace was just a stage for her drama. I spent the rest of my shift in a fog, replaying Mom's words. Selfish. Little drawings. I'd heard it before, but this time it felt different, sharper, like they were trying to erase who I was. When I got home, I opened my sketchbook, tracing Grandma's handwriting for Mia's dreams. I wondered what she'd think of me now, still bending over backward for people who didn't see me. I wanted to call Lauren, to scream scream at her for dragging me into her mess, but I knew she'd turn it around, make me the bad guy. Instead, I texted my best friend Sam, who'd been through her own family drama. "They're at it again," I wrote. "I don't know how much more I can take." She replied instantly, "You don't owe them your life, Mia. Protect your dreams." Sam's words stuck with me, but the guilt was louder. I couldn't shake the image of Mom crying or Lauren in over her head. Against my better judgment, I called Lauren the next day. She picked up, sounding annoyed. "What, Mia? I'm busy." I gritted my teeth. "Mom told me about the loan. 5 grand? Are you serious?" She sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Yeah, it's a mess. Okay, I thought the business would take off. Can you help or not?" No apology, no gratitude, just expectation. "Lauren, I don't have 5,000, I said. "And even if I did, why is this my problem?" She laughed, cold and sharp. "Because you're the responsible one, right? Miss Perfect with her savings. If you don't help, Mom's screwed too. You want that on your conscience?" I hung up, my hands shaking. Miss Perfect. That's how she saw me. Not as a sister, but as a resource. Someone to bail her out while she took shots at me. I sat on my couch, staring at my sketchbook, and felt something shift. I wasn't just angry. I was done. Done letting them guilt me. Done sacrificing my dreams for their chaos. But cutting them off wasn't as simple as deleting their numbers. They were my family, my history. The only people who'd known me my whole life. I needed time to think, to figure out if I could really walk away. The next few days were quiet, but the calm didn't last. Mom started calling daily, leaving voicemails that swung between tearful pleas and sharp accusations. "Mia, Lauren's scared. Why won't you help? You're breaking my heart, acting like you don't care." Lauren sent texts, each one more manipulative than the last. "Guess you're too good for us now. Mom's a wreck because of you." I ignored them, but each message was a needle, pricking at my resolve. I threw myself into my art, finishing the cityscape and starting a new piece. A portrait of myself, imagined as the artist I wanted to be, confident and free. It was therapy, a way to remind myself I had a future worth fighting for. Then came the next blow. I was at the coffee shop, mid-shift, when Sam texted me a screenshot from an online marketplace. My heart stopped. There, listed for $50, was a painting I'd given Mom 2 years ago, a watercolor of a sunset over the lake where we used to go as kids. I'd spent weeks on it, pouring my heart into every brushstroke, hoping it'd mean something to her. The listing was Lauren's, her username unmistakable. The description read, "Pretty painting, good condition, need cash quick." I stared at my phone, my vision blurring. It wasn't just a painting, it was a piece of me, a gift I'd thought she cherished. And Lauren was selling it like it was nothing. I called her, my hands trembling with rage. "You're selling my painting?" I said, skipping any greeting. She didn't miss a beat. "Yeah, so? It was just sitting in Mom's garage. We need the money, Mia." I could hear the smirk in her voice, like she was daring me to fight her. "That was a gift," I said, my voice breaking. "I made it for Mom. You had no right." She sighed, exasperated. "God, you're so dramatic. It's a picture, not a kidney. If you're so attached, buy it back." I hung up, too angry to speak. I wanted to drive to her place, to scream until she understood how much this hurt, but I knew it'd be pointless. Lauren didn't care. Not about me, not about my art, not about anything but herself. I went to Mom's house after my shift, hoping she'd at least be shocked. She was in the living room, sorting through more boxes, looking tired. "Did you know Lauren's selling my painting?" I asked, holding up my phone with the screenshot. Mom barely glanced at it. "She mentioned something about selling old stuff," she said, shrugging. "It's not a big deal, Mia. We're in a bind." "Not a big deal?" I felt like I'd been punched. "Mom, I made that for you. It was special." She sighed, her voice sharp. "Special doesn't pay the bills. You're young, you'll make more. Stop being so sensitive." I stood there, stunned, the room spinning. Mom, who'd always preached family loyalty, was dismissing my pain like it was nothing. I left without another word, my heart heavy. Back home, I sat with my sketchbook, flipping to the portrait of Grandma. I wished she were here, wished she could tell me how to navigate this. Sam came over, bringing pizza and her no-nonsense advice. "They're using you, Mia," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to keep proving you're a good daughter. You're allowed to say no." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I know, but they're my family." Sam squeezed my hand. "Family doesn't treat you like this. You deserve better." The next morning, I checked the marketplace. The painting was gone, marked as sold. I felt a pang of loss, like a piece of my heart had been auctioned off. I texted Lauren, one last attempt to understand. "Why'd you sell it? You knew it mattered to me." Her reply was quick, cold. "Needed the cash. You'll get over it." I stared at my phone, the words blurring. Get over it. That's what they always expected. Me to swallow my hurt, to keep giving, to let them take and take until I had nothing left. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my art school application, double-checking every line. This was my line in the sand, my way of fighting back. But the drama wasn't over. A few days later, Mom called, her voice panicked. "Mia, Lauren's gone AWOL. She's not answering her phone, and that lender guy showed up at my door." My heart raced, but I forced myself to stay calm. "What do you want me to do, Mom?" She hesitated, then said, "Can you come over? I'm scared, and we need you." There it was, the pull, the guilt, the expectation. I wanted to say no to protect myself, but the thought of Mom alone, scared, tugged at me. "I'll be there," I said, hating myself for it. As I grabbed my keys, I looked at my sketchbook. Grandma's words staring back, for Mia's dreams. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep them alive, but I wasn't ready to give up, not yet. Lauren selling my painting and Mom brushing it off like it was nothing had left me raw, like my heart was a canvas they'd slashed without a second thought. I'm Mia, 24, and I'd spent years trying to hold my family together. Mom with her guilt trips, Lauren with her endless crises, while chasing my dream of art school. After the sketchbook incident and the sale of my sunset painting, I'd started pulling back, guarding my savings and my sanity. But family doesn't let go easily. Mom's panicked call about Lauren going AWOL and a shady lender showing up at her door dragged me back in. And as I drove to her house, I felt the weight of their chaos pressing down. I wanted to believe I could help without losing myself, but every step was testing my resolve, pushing me closer to a choice I'd been avoiding. Keep fighting for them them or walk away for good. Mom's house was a mess when I got there. Boxes still cluttering the living room, dishes piled in the sink, a faint smell of burnt toast lingering. She was on the couch, clutching a mug, her eyes red from crying. "Mia, thank God," she said, jumping up to hug me. I let her, but my arms stayed stiff. "What happened?" I asked, stepping back. She launched into a jumbled story. Lauren hadn't paid the lender, the guy had banged on her door demanding money, and now Lauren wasn't answering her phone. "I'm scared, Mia," Mom said, her voice trembling. "What if she's in trouble? What if he comes back?" I nodded, trying to stay calm, but inside I was seething. Lauren's mess, as usual, was becoming my problem. I sat down, rubbing my temples. "Have you called the police?" Mom shook her head. "Lauren said not to. She said it'd make things worse." Of course she did. Lauren always had an excuse, a way to keep the drama spinning. "Mom, you can't just sit here waiting for her to fix this," I said. "If this guy's dangerous, you need to do something." She looked at me, her face crumpling. "I can't, Mia. I don't know how. You're the strong one. You always figure it out." Her words hit like a punch. The strong one. That's what they'd made me. Reliable, responsible, the one who cleaned up their messes while they took shots at my dreams. "I'm not your fixer," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. Mom flinched, but I didn't back down. "I'll help you call the police, but this isn't my mess to solve." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. "You're different," she said, her voice accusing. "You used to care." I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the quiet room. "I still care, Mom. That's why I'm here, but I'm done being your safety net." She didn't respond, just sipped her tea, her silence louder than any guilt trip. I called the non-emergency line, explaining the situation, and they promised to send an officer to check on Mom's house. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Stay safe," I told her, grabbing my keys, "and tell Lauren to call me when she surfaces." Mom nodded, but her eyes were distant, like she was already rewriting the story to make me the bad guy. Driving home, I felt a mix of relief and dread. I'd set a boundary, but it didn't feel like a victory. Mom's words, "You used to care," kept looping in my head, mingling with Lauren's smug, "You'll get over it," about my painting. I stopped at a gas station, needing a moment to breathe, and checked my phone. No messages from Lauren, but Sam had texted, "You okay? Don't let them drag you down." I smiled, grateful for her. Sam had cut off her own toxic family years ago, and she'd been my rock through this. I texted back, "Trying. Might need a pizza night soon." Her reply was instant. "Anytime, girl. You're stronger than you know." Back at my apartment, I tried to focus on my art school application, but my mind kept drifting. I opened Grandma's sketchbook, flipping to the portrait I'd drawn of her. Her smile felt like a lifeline, a reminder that someone had believed in me without strings attached. I started a new sketch, a self-portrait, but this one was different. Me standing tall, paintbrush in hand, surrounded by shadows that looked like Mom and Lauren. It was raw, angry, but it felt honest. I worked until midnight, the world fading away, my hands moving like they had something to prove. The next morning, Lauren finally called. I was at the coffee shop, prepping for the breakfast rush, when her name flashed on my screen. I stepped outside, my heart pounding. "Where have you been?" I asked, skipping pleasantries. She sounded tired, but not sorry. "I was laying low, okay? That lender guy's a creep. I'm fine now." "Fine? After scaring Mom? After dragging me into her mess? You can't just disappear like that," I said, my voice tight. "Mom was freaking out. I had to call the cops." She laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "Cops? God, Mia, you're so dramatic." "It's handled. Chill." I gripped my phone, my anger boiling over. "Handled? Like you handled selling my painting? Or taking my sketchbook? You don't get to keep doing this, Lauren." She sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "You're still on about that? Look, I needed cash. You weren't using that painting, and the sketchbook was an accident. Let it go. Let it go." There it was again, the demand to swallow my hurt, to make room for her chaos. "You knew what they meant to me," I said, my voice shaking. "You didn't care. That's the problem." She scoffed. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always playing the martyr. If you really cared about family, you'd help me with this loan instead of whining about your art." I hung up, my hands trembling. Her words stung, but they also clarified something. Lauren didn't see me as a sister. She saw me as a tool, someone to use and discard. I went back to work, my mind racing. During my break, I called Sam, spilling everything. "She's never going to change," I said, my voice breaking. Sam was quiet for a moment, then said, "You can't change her, Mia, but you can change what you do about it. What do you want?" I didn't have an answer. Not yet, but the question stuck with me. What did I want? A life where I wasn't constantly apologizing for existing? A family that didn't demand I shrink myself to fit their needs? The next few days were a blur. Mom kept calling, her voicemails a mix of worry and blame. "Lauren's struggling, Mia. Why won't you talk to her? You're tearing us apart." I ignored them, focusing on my art and my job. I finished the self-portrait, hanging it on my wall, a reminder that I was more than their fixer. But the guilt was relentless, creeping in at night when I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mom's house, about Lauren's loan, about all the times I'd bailed them out. Was I abandoning them, or was I finally saving myself? Then came the next betrayal. I was at the coffee shop, cleaning the espresso machine, when a regular, Mrs. Chen, came in. She was a sweet, older woman who always tipped extra and asked about my art. "Mia, I saw something of yours online," she said, pulling out her phone. My heart sank, expecting another of Lauren's listings. But this was worse. It was a photo of my sketchbook, Grandma's sketchbook, posted on a local art forum, credited to Lauren. The caption read, "My latest work, available for commission." My stomach churned. Not only had she tried to sell it, she was now passing it off as her own. I thanked Mrs. Chen, my voice hollow, and stepped into the back to call Lauren. She didn't pick up, so I left a voicemail, my words shaking with rage. "You're claiming my sketchbook as your art? Are you serious?" "That's mine, Lauren. Grandma's. You need to take it down now." I hung up, my hands clenched, and texted her the same message for good measure. An hour later she replied, "Calm down. I was just testing the waters. Didn't think you'd care." Didn't think I'd care? She'd stolen my work, my legacy, and was using it to scam people. I reported the post to the forum, my fingers trembling as I typed out the truth. "This is my artwork, posted without permission." When I got home I checked the forum. The post was gone, but Lauren had texted again. "Thanks Thanks for embarrassing me, Mia. Real nice. I didn't reply. I was done with her excuses, her deflections. I called Mom, hoping she'd at least see how wrong this was. She picked up, sounding annoyed. Mia, what's with you and Lauren? She said you got her kicked off some art site. I took a deep breath, explaining everything. The sketchbook, the forum, Lauren's lies. Mom listened, then sighed. She's just trying to get by, honey. Why can't you let it go? You're making everything harder. I froze, her words like a knife. Harder for who, Mom? Me? Because I'm the one losing everything here. She didn't respond, just hung up, leaving me with silence. I sat on my couch, Grandma's sketchbook in my lap, and cried. Not just for the sketchbook or the painting, but for the years I'd spent trying to be enough for them. Sam came over, bringing ice cream and her fierce loyalty. They're not your responsibility, she said, her voice firm. You've given them enough, Mia. It's time to choose you. I nodded, wiping my eyes. She was right, but choosing myself meant letting go of the family I'd always known. I wasn't sure I was strong enough, but I was getting closer. The next morning, I got an email from the art school. My application had been received, and they wanted a portfolio review. It was a spark of hope, a reminder of what I was fighting for. I spent the day organizing my work, including scans of my sketchbook pages, determined to keep moving forward. But Mom and Lauren weren't done. That evening, Mom texted, "Lauren's coming over tomorrow. We need to talk. All of us. Please, Mia." My heart sank. Another family meeting, another chance for them to guilt me into submission. I didn't want to go, but a part of me needed to face them, to see if there was any chance of salvaging this. I replied, "I'll be there, but this is the last time." As I set my phone down, I looked at my self-portrait on the wall, the shadows of Mom and Lauren looming behind me. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but I knew I couldn't keep living in their shadow. Lauren's theft of my sketchbook for her fake art post was the deepest cut yet, but Mom's dismissal of it, siding with her, blaming me, made it clear I was fighting a losing battle. I'm Mia, 24, and I'd spent years propping up Mom and Lauren, sacrificing my art school dreams to keep them afloat. Their latest demand for a family meeting felt like another trap, but I agreed to go, hoping for a shred of accountability. As I drove to Mom's house, Grandma's sketchbook sat in my bag, a reminder of what I was fighting for. I was tired of their guilt, their chaos, and I was ready to draw a line, even if it meant walking away. Mom's living room was tense, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Lauren sat on the couch, scrolling her phone while Mom fidgeted with a mug. "Mia, you're here," Mom said, her voice shaky. "We need to fix this." I crossed my arms, staying by the door. "Fix what? Lauren stealing my art? You defending her?" Lauren rolled her eyes. "God, Mia, it was a mistake. I took the post down. Why are you so obsessed?" I laughed, bitter. "Obsessed? You tried to sell my sketchbook, claimed it as yours. That's not a mistake. It's a betrayal." Mom jumped in, her voice pleading. "She's struggling, Mia. We all are. Why can't you help instead of fighting?" I stared at her, my heart sinking. "I've helped for years. Money, time, my dreams. You sold my painting, dismissed my art. When do I get to matter?" Lauren scoffed. "You're so dramatic. You've got your little art fund, acting like you're above us." That was it, the final straw. They didn't see me, only what I could give. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not your bank or your punching bag. I'm choosing me." Mom's eyes widened. "You'd abandon your family?" I shook my head. "You abandoned me first." I walked out, ignoring Mom's cries, Lauren's silence. At home, I blocked their numbers, my hands shaking but my heart lighter. Sam came over, her support unwavering. "You did the right thing," she said. I nodded, opening my sketchbook to Grandma's words. For Mia's dreams. I'd sent my art school portfolio, and hope flickered. Mom and Lauren's shadows would linger, but I was stepping into my light, ready to build a life that was mine.